Hare
Krishna,
Krishna,
Hare
Hare
Krishna,
Krishna,
Krishna
Krishna
Krishna,
Hare
Hare
Hare,
Hare,
Hare Rama,
Hare
Hare
Rama,
Hare
Hare
Rama,
Krishna,
Rama
Rama,
Hare
Rama
Krishna,
Rama,
Krishna
Hare
Krishna,
Hare
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 Ram,
Hare
Ram
Krishna,
Ram
Hare
Ram,
Krishna,
Hare
Krishna
Hare,
Hare
Krishna,
Krishna
Ram,
Hare
Hare
Ram
Hare,
Krishna,
Ram,
Krishna
Ram,
Hare
Hare
Rama,
Ram,
Hare
Hare
Ram
Rama,
Krishna, Hare
Rama
Ram,
Krishna,
Rama,
Hare
Krishna
Hare
Hare Hare,
Hare
Hare
Ram
Krishna,
Krishna,
Hare
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 Krishna,
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 Ram
Krishna
Krishna
Hare
Krishna
Hare.
Hare
Hare
Ram, Ram
Hare
Ram Ram,
Rama,
Hare
Hare Rama,
Hare
Rama
Krishna, Hare
Rama,
Krishna, Krishna
Jai
Krishna,
Shri
Hare
Krishna
Hare
Ram,
Krishna,
Chaitanya
Ram
Hare
Prabhu
Ram,
Krishna,
Hare
Krishna
Hare
Nityananda
Krishna
Sri
Hare
Advaita
Hare
Hare
Rama,
Krishna, Hare
Hare
Krishna,
Rama,
Gadadhara
Krishna
Rama
Krishna,
Shri
Rama,
Hare Ram,
Vastu
Ram Ram,
Jai
Ram
Shri
Hare
Krishna
Hare
Chaitanya
Krishna,
Prabhu
Hare Krishna, Krishna
Nityananda
Krishna,
Shri
Hare
Advaita
Ram,
Gadadhara
Ram Ram,
Shivananda
Ram Hare
Gaura
Hare
Hare
Krishna, Hare
Krishna Mahamantra ki Jai,
Jai,
Jai.
Ila
Jai
Prabhupada ki
Jai.
Jai,
Jai. Thank
Gaura
you.
Bhakta Brinda ki
Jai. Hari Hari Bol. Thank you again for joining this weekly Friday satsang. So now time is 7:55. For another 5 minutes until Ajit Krishna Prabhu joins, we can just quickly recap what we discussed last week. Is that okay?
Yeah, that's perfectly fine.
Okay. Last week, who were present? Ramsham Prabhu?
Yeah,
He was present last week?
yeah, I was there.
Okay.
Let me see.
You want to recap, Prabhu?
Yeah, Prabhu, I can do it. Let's see.
We did 439, right? 439, 440?
Yeah, 439 we do. I'm just checking. If anybody can start in between, so I'm still finding out. Yeah, we did 439 to 442.
Yes, Prabhu.
So last. Yeah, so Prabhu was talking about doubter is the worst than ignorant. So doubter is the worst than ignorant because doubter is having some knowledge about the Lord. And since he is having the knowledge about the Lord, and he is, talking about the Lord in, like kind of atheist kind of things, like challenging about the Lord's quality, form, pastime, and, like opulences of the Lord. So he's doubting on the Lord's, qualities and opulences. So the doubter is having the knowledge about the Lord, he's talking against the Lord, and whereas ignorant is not having knowledge about the Lord, and he's unaware of who is the Lord. So whenever the ignorant is getting knowledge about the Lord and association of devotee, he can easily be converted as the devotee. So that's the that's the ignorant is far better than the doubter. So Prabhu was talking about that ignorant like a plain paper, whereas the like it can be written anything, and that's what the ignorant is good as compared to doubter. So and so to remove the doubt, what is required? Knowledge is required. Knowledge about the Lord is required. And what kind of knowledge is required? So that knowledge should be given by Guru. That should be spoken by Guru, Shastra, and Sadhu. So that knowledge, then if the Guru imparts the knowledge, because he has realized the truth, which we have already undergone, verse number 434. So 439 is directly linked with we were talking about that is directly linked with the 434, that tadvidi paripatena pariprasnena sevaya upadachyante te jnanam jnaninas tattvadarshina. Since the Guru has realized the truth, he can impart the knowledge to the devotee, to the ignorant. Now he has become the devotee. So he can have now the knowledge about the Lord, which will be with the Shraddha, faith, and so that way. So then we talked about the verse from Srimad Bhagavatam, that is 3rd canto, 6th chapter and 36 number verse. So verse was going like this. I have written half of the verse. Yatha Sruti, Yatha Mati, Yatha Gati. So what Guru has heard from the parampara, he just should repeat. So Guru has heard from the parampara. Parampara in the sense that we know all that what is the parampara. So it's coming from Krishna himself, and came to the Acharya, and then it came to the Guru, and previous Acharya, then to the Guru, and Guru is imparting the same. So whatever Krishna has spoken in Bhagavad Gita and in the Bhagavad Gita, so same knowledge now devotee has got, and who has become devotee from the ignorant, now he is devotee, and he is now having this knowledge he has got from the Guru, and he is progressing in the devotional service. So that this much I have the note, Prabhu. And before that also we had read the verse number 39 and 40, because we repeated in two weeks. So in 39 and 40 more we discussed about the faith. Faith is very, very important, to progress in the bhakti, and therefrom only the Bhakti Lata Bija started. As we know that 9 stages of devotional service: Adau Sraddha Tata Sadhu Sandhya Yatha Bhajan Kriya Tataha Anarth Nidvriti Syat Tataha Tataha Nishtha Tataha Ruchi Tataha Bhava and Prema. So that way. And he referred one Srimad Bhagavatam sloka, that is canto, 7th canto, 9th chapter, 44th verse. I have not written that verse, but it covers the Bhajana Nandi and Ghoshta Nandi. So that we had little discussed about that, what Bhajana Nandi does and what Ghoshta Nandi does. So Tusyanticha, Ramanticha, kind of. So that's what there. So here we are having when we are having the faith, we develop our taste to the devotional service, we develop a taste to the Guru, and Guru imparts the knowledge, and then we progress in the bhakti, in the essence of the, like verse number 39 to 42. Hare Krishna.
Yeah, very nice too. I mean, the entire class in just 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Okay. That is very nice. Also, what I heard, couple of points. I mean, you have already covered, but in my own words, I'm saying that how a doubting person knows how to be unhappy, not how to be happy. A doubting person always be unhappy. And these doubts can be destroyed only by knowledge. Right? There is a nice, wonderful sloka in the same chapter, which I like. Yataidamshi samiddhognir basmasat kurute arjuna gnanagni sarva karmani basmasat kurute tata. Now, Hare Krishna Prabhu, Dhanarthanam Guru
Krishna, Prabhupada. Hare Krishna, Guru Prabhupada.
So I was just telling about this verse which I like most in this chapter, that Yataidamshi samiddhognir basmasat kurute arjuna gnanagni sarva karmani basmasat kurute tata. So like how a blazing fire turns wood into ashes, similarly, Gnanagni Sarva Karmani. So all that reactions of our activities, sinful reactions, can be at once, burnt into ashes by Gnana, the fire of knowledge. Gnanagni Sarva Karmani Basmasat Kurute Tata. That's a wonderful. So basically, we need to gain knowledge even before we come to the stage of realization. Unless we have knowledge, we can't get anything. So knowledge is a basic thing, and to get that knowledge, we need to have a little bit faith to start with, and that faith will be turned into a nishtha, a firm faith. eventually, with the association of devotees and service of the devotees. So otherwise, these doubts are like demons which can kill or even take devotee into a different direction. Actually, if you have too many doubts and if it is not solved, so it can lead to a downfall of a devotee also. So we have to be very careful. That's why association is very much bigger. As you said, Ramsham Prabhu, sadhu sangha. Sadhu sangha. Yeah, that is what's required to come to the stage of Nishta. Yeah. Thank you, Prabhu. Hare Krishna, Ajita Krishna Prabhu. Please.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. So that was a very nice discussion on that verse, Prabhu. Very nice. Thank you for that.
Thank you,
So the kids and all weren't doing any kirtan today?
No, sir, not available. So we chanted for
Okay, very nice.
20 minutes. We chanted.
Very nice.
And Mitravinda Mataji, she's at work, so she's still able to attend this call.
Oh, very nice.
Yeah. My family, including kids, they are in India. So
Okay.
they also joined for chanting, but now they have classes, so they left.
Yeah, it must be, well,
Brahma Muhurta in India now.
Muhurat in India now. Yeah, good time to chant. All right. So
recap.
We'll start quickly because I was thinking maybe we'll keep it a little short.
Yes.
Just for my. All right. So last time we had, I think now it's just two verses left, 41 and 42. So maybe we can just, anybody can recite if they like.
Okay. Yeah, we can do that too.
From the Narasimhan Prabhu, Hare Krishna, chapter 4, 41 and 42 is finishing up there.
Narasimha Prabhu can do. Yes.
Yes, Prabhu.
Please, Prabhu.
Yeah.
441.
Or let's share that verse if it is available.
Yes, I'm sharing.
Yoga sanyasta karmanam.
Yoga samyasta karmana.
Jnana sanchinna samshayam.
Jnana sanchinna samshayam.
Atmavantam na karmani.
Atmavantam na vandami.
Nibatnanti dhananjaya.
Nibadanti dhananjaya.
Translation by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. One who acts in devotional service, renouncing the fruits of his actions, and whose doubts have been destroyed by transcendental knowledge, is situated factually in the self. Thus, he is not bound by the reactions of work, O conqueror of riches. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. And the last verse then.
You want to do Ramsham Prabhu?
Yeah, Prabhu, I will do that.
Yes.
Tasmad agyanam sambhutam.
Tasmad jnana sambhutam.
Etastam jnana sinatmanah.
Ritstam Jnana
Atmana.
Chitvainam sansayam yogam.
Hitvainam
Yogam.
Atishto tishta bharata.
Atishto
Bharata.
And the translation by His Divine Grace Savai Charna Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai.
Yeah.
Therefore, the doubts which have arisen in your heart out of ignorance should be slashed by the weapons of knowledge. Armed with yoga, O Bharata, stand and fight. Hare Krishna.
Thank you.
Hare Krishna. Okay, so we'll just start with the invocation prayers and then we can continue the discussions. Om Jnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshur Unmitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Gadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yutapadagamanam Shri Guru Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sarvana Raghunatamitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sagana Lalita Shri Vishakanitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namastute Tapta Kanchan Gorangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Suti Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakalpatrubhascha Kripa Sindhubhya eva cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasati Gaur Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare Hare. So 41 Yoga Sanyasta Karmanam Jnana Sanchinna Samshayam Atmavantam Na Karmani Nibadananti Dhananjaya. So in the translation, one who acts in devotional service, renouncing the fruits of his action, and whose doubts have been destroyed by transcendental knowledge, is situated factually in the self. Thus, he is not bound by reactions of work or conqueror of riches. So the key focus over here is that by transcendental knowledge, one is situated in the self. By transcendental knowledge, one makes spiritual advancement. And the idea is that when we act in devotional service, the characteristic of acting in devotional service is that we renounce the fruits of our work. It's not as if we renounce work, but we renounce the fruits of our work. And when there is transcendental knowledge, then then the doubts are destroyed. So thank you, Mitranda Mataji, for the feedback there. So the idea is, and I mean, the point is we all work, and Krishna wants us to continue doing that work. That's a necessity. It's just a practical necessity to keep ourselves, to keep the body and soul together. But if the fruits of work are renounced, in other words, we are not attached to the fruits of work, whatever fruits come, that's fine. We try to use them in Krishna's service. Using fruits of your work in Krishna's service doesn't mean that you donate 100% and have nothing for yourself, but whatever we use for ourselves too, if our home, our possessions, if everything we view as a gift of Krishna, then whatever we do to maintain all of that is also maintaining something that Krishna has given us, which belongs to him, which is a means or a vehicle for us to continue in Krishna's service. So with that attitude, then we employ whatever we have in our possession in Krishna's service, then that keeps us situated properly. And properly situated means we are situated in actually a transcendental position. Transcendental position. So thank you, Madhaji. I understand you're at work, so it's good you got the interaction going this way via Zoom. And then finally, the last verse where Krishna says, therefore the doubts which have arisen in your heart out of ignorance should be slashed by the weapon of knowledge. Armed with yoga, O Bharat, stand up and fight. So Krishna is telling Arjun that the doubts that have come into your mind, doubts pertaining to whether what is action and what is actually what is karma, what is vikarma, and what is akarma. Basically, Arjun didn't want to commit any sinful activities or vikarma. And so his question was, or his concern was very appropriate. It's good to not want to get stuck in performing sinful activities that could have sinful reactions. However, Krishna says that when you're acting under my instruction and for my pleasure, it's not sinful. The action doesn't matter. Here you're killing people, which apparently might seem harmful or sinful, but you're not actually committing any sinful activity because you're actually working for my pleasure under my instructions. So basically this verse, I mean, the purport for this verse can essentially be divided into the 5 different topics, basically, or 5 different 5 different topics that Prabhupada kind of brings out in the purports. And the first one is the goal of sacrifice. First one is the goal of sacrifice, where Prabhupada talks about Sanatana Yoga, or the eternal yoga. So Prabhupada basically says that the yoga system instructed in this chapter is called Sanatana Yoga because these are eternal activities performed by the living entity. Eternal activities performed by the living entity means activities that are prescribed for us, which will lead us to spiritual, which will lead us to the spiritual goal, which is Golok Vrindavan. Now, this yoga, the Sanatana Yoga, also has 2 divisions. And those are, and in the purport, Prabhupada says that they are performed. One is called just the sacrifice of one's material possessions, and the other is called the knowledge of the self. So there are these 2 types of sacrificial actions. Sacrificing one's material possessions and sacrificing one and attaining knowledge of the self. Attaining knowledge of the self is also considered a sacrifice, because you could be using your mind, your brain, your time, your intelligence in acquiring mundane knowledge. Instead, if you're acquiring spiritual knowledge, then that's a sacrifice, because you are controlling your mind and engaging it in a particular way. And so when there is, so of these 2 types of sacrifices, sacrificing one's material possessions and in engaging in spiritual study, when the 2 are combined together, it becomes very wholesome, because then we sacrifice our material possessions for a spiritual goal. So that's the first topic that is covered in this purport. And this is basically the summary of this entire chapter. Summary of the entire chapter is in 5 parts. One is the goal of sacrifice, which is to understand or to use our material possessions in devotional service. Then the second topic that is covered in this purport, and therefore the chapter, is there are 2 levels of spiritual knowledge. First level is that understanding one's own self, that is, who are we? We are spirit souls, and we are not this material body. So that is the first topic of spiritual understanding. The second is, who is the Supreme Lord? And so Krishna in this chapter starts to indicate that he is the Supreme Lord. Basically, he doesn't start talking about himself being the Supreme Lord until chapter 7. But he gives us a hint in this chapter about him being the Supreme Lord, because Arjuna has surrendered to him. Krishna is going to start giving him, or has started giving him, instructions. And therefore, to set the stage for us to take Krishna's instructions seriously, Krishna gives us a peek into his true identity, that he is the Supreme Lord. So when these 2 things, so these 2 topics are also covered in this chapter. And then once one understands this, then there is no difficulty in obtaining perfect knowledge of the self as part and parcel of the Supreme Lord, because the Lord explains who we are. I mean, we are basically like little, you heard this analogy before, Prabhupada's analogy is that we are little particles of gold from the gold mine. So that's basically, so our identity and the Lord's identity, those are covered in this chapter. Then third is learning of the Lord's transcendental activities. Krishna describes in the beginning of this chapter that, that one who does not understand the instructions of the Bhagavad Gita, and one who does not basically make use of the independence awarded to him to understand the Bhagavad Gita, is basically ignoring the activities of the Lord. Because Bhagavad Gita is essentially a description of Krishna, of who he is, topics that are covered in the Bhagavad Gita, but in the context of chapter 4, Krishna gives us an indication of that he is the Supreme Lord and that we are spirit souls meant to serve the Supreme Lord. So learning about the Lord's transcendental activities is important, or understanding that the Lord's activities are transcendental and not mundane is important. Otherwise, we won't take Krishna seriously, and Krishna started giving instructions to Arjuna. So therefore, the Lord reveals in this chapter that his activities are transcendental. And then there is actually the fifth or the fourth topic is also a continuation of the goal of sacrifices. So goal of sacrifices is in two parts. And so in the second part, Krishna says that ignorance can be removed by the gradual acceptance of the principles of Krishna consciousness, which is nothing but awakening, or it is awakened by different types of sacrifices, either to demigod. Like if you remember in this chapter, we covered various types of sacrifices, sacrifice to the demigods, sacrifices of to Brahman, then the brahmacharis, sacrifices that the householders perform, sacrifices in controlling the senses, so on and so forth. So there are various types of sacrifices described in this chapter for each of the varnas and each of the ashrams. So like we had discussed in one of the previous sessions that, 4 varnas, 4 ashrams, there's 16 boxes, and each one of them has unique duties. And so associated with those duties are sacrifices. And so there are those unique sacrifices. But the goal of all of them, the goal of the entire Varnashram institution is to understand who is Krishna and who are we. So which kind of ties with the previous goal, which was the third goal, learning about the Lord's transcendental activities, and the second goal, which was who are we and who's Krishna. And so all of these sacrifices are basically enablers. They help us understand who we are and who is Krishna, and what we should do with everything that Krishna has given us as material possessions. And then the final goal that is described in the purport and part of the chapter is that how to learn this transcendental knowledge properly. So that's where the verse Tadvidi Pranipadena Paribhishnena Sevaya comes in. So 434, how we should approach a spiritual master, learn from him, and so forth. So that entire verse is a topic in itself for this chapter. That is how to properly learn this transcendental knowledge. So since the topic of this chapter is transcendental knowledge, how to learn it is verse 434, Tadvidi Pranipadena Paribhishnena Seva, just approach a spiritual master, inquire from submissively, render service to him, the self-realized soul can impart knowledge to you because he's seen the truth. So we learned about how the spiritual master connects us to the Shastras, Yatha Mati, Yatha Gati, and Yatha Shruti. So that was from Bhagavatam, Maitreya Rishi's instructions to Vidu. So again, that's the final topic. How should we learn transcendental knowledge? How should we acquire transcendental knowledge? Now, being in the disciplic succession from time immemorial is something that Prabhupada repeats numerous times, or very frequently. He's repeated that part because we cannot underestimate the significance of receiving the knowledge from a bona fide spiritual master in the line of disciplic succession. Otherwise, it's just pure speculation on the part of somebody, and it's useless for us. So even though the Supreme Lord imparted this knowledge, he gives a little bit of history in the beginning of this chapter that this knowledge was imparted to Vaswan, and then from there it came down through the chain of disciplic succession, but then it was broken, and therefore I've come to reestablish it. So properly learning transcendental knowledge is goal number 5 of this chapter. So in summary, again, there are 5 main topics that this chapter covers, which are summarized in verse 42. One is the goal of sacrifice. Second is, well, there are 2 parts to the goal of sacrifice, and there are, since this chapter focuses a lot on the different types of sacrifices for the different varnas and ashrams, that that itself becomes a topic. So goal of sacrifice taken in 2 parts. Then the 2 levels of spiritual knowledge, that's the 3rd topic. 4th one is learning of the Lord's transcendental activities. And final 5th one is properly learning transcendental knowledge, how to learn transcendental knowledge. Those are high-level thoughts on this chapter. Let's open it up for thoughts, questions, comments, and discussion.
Thank you, Ajita Krishna Prabhu. It's a wonderful summarization, point by point, easy to remember. That's nice. Thank you, Prabhu. I have a couple of questions, clarification.
Yes, Prabhu.
You can hear me, right?
Yeah.
Come closer. So this chapter says transcendental knowledge, and according to my understanding, is transcendental knowledge means the ultimate knowledge, which is bhakti yoga.
Yeah.
But in this chapter, he doesn't describe anything about bhakti yoga. If I see clearly, it is all karma yoga.
Yes.
It is not bhakti yoga, but still, the chapter is named as transcendental knowledge. So where I could see the transcendental knowledge here, because it says, and especially in the last verses, we see that, you should not have doubt, you should have knowledge, you should have knowledge. And that knowledge, the yoga, he says, the Sanatana Yoga, the knowledge, right? So where in this chapter is bhakti yoga mentioned?
Good question. Actually, in this entire section, bhakti yoga is not really mentioned much, because the first 6 chapters basically deal with karma yoga. And it's only the second 6 that deal really with bhakti. And but to your point, why is it called transcendental knowledge? It's called transcendental knowledge because Krishna introduces here the concept of the different types of yogas and how and what are the different grades of yoga. And he hints, or there is mention made that bhakti yoga is the highest. But there is no detail given. There's more detail given about the different types of karma. So he talks about akarma, vikarma, and then he talks about just plain karma. But all of these are topics of transcendental knowledge, because they allow us to understand the difference between the different types of activities that are being performed by the different types of people. And therefore, he's basically laying the groundwork here for us to understand why bhakti yoga is sublime. So, as you know, there are 400,000 different types of human beings, and everybody's consciousness is different. Level of spiritual understanding is different. And therefore, but because they're all transcendentalists, I take that back. All 400,000 types are not, all of them are not transcendentalists. There are many There are many, like the yogis, the jnanis. They're all seeking for transcendental, they're seeking after transcendental knowledge. They're trying to find God. It's just that they are following different paths. But the overall goal of their practice, whether it's a jnani or a yogi or a karmi even, is they're trying to do things. Well, the jnani and the yogi are definitely trying to find where is God and who is God. And the karmi is trying to use the resources given by God, whether he approaches demigods or Krishna, to improve his standard of material living. So the topic definitely becomes higher than just pure mundane activity, and therefore it is transcendental. But it is not the highest. I mean, you're right about transcendental knowledge should be synonymous with bhakti yoga. It is and it isn't. In a devotee's mind, it is. But in an aspiring transcendentalist's mind, somebody who's a jnani or a yogi, bhakti is probably not their understanding of the ultimate goal. But because Krishna is describing all these different types of people who are seeking after God, it's called transcendental knowledge.
Okay, thank you, Prabhu.
You're welcome. That's an interesting question. I mean, why is it called transcendental knowledge when you're just talking about karma and jnana and all that?
Maybe it's the beginning of transcendental knowledge.
It is. Yeah. Well, and it is transcendental because it's transcendental to what? It's transcendental to material, just pure material activity, to just pure karma. So a little bit of context and perspective, I think, is
Sure.
necessary. Yeah.
Thank you, Prabhu. Anybody else?
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. So in the purport, you divided into 5 parts, something from your side or something. It is there in the Prabhupada saying that it is the 5 parts of this purport. Or I was just wondering, Prabhu, I was going through the purport. I see many points. So you are summarizing in the 5 parts of this purport, or how to take it up? And you gave that goal of the sacrifice and all. I have not noted down also. If you can repeat once, so that would be helpful.
Okay. First of all, Prabhu, it's not my my work or my interpretation, and it's not my creation by any way. Of those five parts, I dare not do that because I'm not qualified to do
I
that.
meant to say, means the content of the purport. I see that many points are there, and sometimes Prabhupada writes this. These are the 5 points, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So
Yeah,
I was trying to understand. You have you have categorized it in the 5 parts. So that was my intention to ask.
Yeah, this is those 5 parts are basically based on the description and summarization given by Bhurijan Prabhu.
Okay.
So when we do Bhakti Shastri, you all have done that. We take a lot of references from Bhurijan Prabhu's work, and so this is all his work. I mean, I'm just a student of what Prabhupada
I'm referring his. Sorry to interrupt. I'm referring his notes only, Virijan Prabhu notes. He has given the points. I see the 10 points. Yeah. So
anyway, I had 5. Well, if you have 10, that's even more detailed.
I see the 10 points there. So Mukta Sangha Prabhu will be having the same, I think notes. So shall I share? I mean, that will be helpful. I think. Or maybe I think you are having the earlier edition or what? So mine is version 3.1. So yeah, maybe. Anyway, Prabhu, but what are the 5? If you can tell that, it will be good for me.
The goal of sacrifice, that's in 2 parts.
Okay.
Then how to properly learn transcendental knowledge. That
Okay.
is the final part. Then learning of the Lord's transcendental activities.
Okay.
And the final one was 2 levels of spiritual knowledge.
Okay. I think he has extended the same. Okay.
Yeah, none of it is my own creation.
Yeah.
The only
No,
the only things that I created were those PowerPoint slides that I was using some time back.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
those are just ideas that come when you're reading and you're, so.
Fine, Prabhu. Thank you. I see that these are the points. So he's having now the 10
You sent,
points.
you sent a message.
I pasted in the chat.
Sanatana Yoga, okay, 2 divisions of sacrificial action, yeah. And then the knowledge of the self, yeah. 2 divisions of spiritual activity. Same thing, Prabhu.
Is that the same?
Yeah. Who can understand the 2 divisions of spiritual? One who follows the path of benefiting from understanding, personally, understand, yeah. One who does not understand about the faithless misusing is, yeah, the same, exactly same thing.
So he's saying that A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I. So they are same, right?
Yeah, he's just, it's the 5 points that I had, which is, I mean, the content is exactly the same. It's just fragmented further into, it's just further segmented into
Okay. Got
10
it.
parts. Yeah, it's the exact same content.
Yeah, got it. Thank you, Prabhu. Thank you.
You're welcome, Prabhu.
Thank you, Ramshyam Prabhu. Mitravinda Mataji has a question. Mataji, please go ahead.
Hey Krishna, Prabhu, would you further discuss offering the results of one's work for Krishna's, desire and benefit from the regard of knowing, understanding, and really reflecting on what one may wish to be Krishna's desire in one's actions, because it may be one's internal desire or external desire, and separating that from actually knowing what Krishna wants one to do. And I know it's in the Shastras, very clearly explained what we should be doing, but in those instances where one perhaps may not be able to help themselves, or, but dovetailing service on top of that desire or those actions, and then from a perspective, thinking that this is what Krishna may want one to do.
Is there a specific area of focus that you had in mind, Mataji?
Well, I mean, there's so many times we can, think that we're doing Krishna's desire, and maybe it's not exactly that. Maybe it's our desire, and Krishna's either granting it or we're pushing the agenda so we can have what we want, as a loving parent. But sometimes those there are very specific guidelines on what we should be doing and should not be doing.
Right.
But in those instances where one perhaps is doing what really shouldn't be done, and the sacrifice of one's work or what have you, how are we understanding? Some people have this question, especially new, but even the seasoned devotee: is this what I want, or is this what Krishna wants? How do I know?
Yeah. And of course, the answer that we all kind of know and lean back on is that, let's consult Guru, Sadhu, and Shastra, and but at the end of the day, I think, well, it's a very important point that you raise. You may have a certain thought that, okay, let me do this. This is my service. I want to perform this service. But then you want to cross-check that somehow to ensure that, is this really Krishna's desire, or is this my desire and I'm just pushing my agenda, like you said, I think the answer to that, obviously, I mean, this is such a good question. Answer to that is not so straightforward and so easy that, just consult Guru Sadhana and Shastra. Of course, but you may not always have access to the three resources. Or it may be something like I find it easier to talk in terms of a specific example. So I'll just give you a specific example. Let's say that I have a desire to donate $1,000, right? Is that what Krishna wants? Maybe Krishna wants me to donate 2,000. Or maybe Krishna wants me to, will be happy if I just did 5. Or 500. Why am I focused on this figure of 1,000? And the answer to that is just so hard. I don't know. And I'll never know that, is this really what Krishna wanted? Is this the exact figure that Krishna had in mind? Or is this like 50% of the disposable income that I have at this point that I can donate? I don't know. These are all very difficult, very specific questions. And I think the answer to that comes to us over time. Over time, it's kind of revealed somehow, that, oh, that was the right thing to do. Or I think what happens is, if we kind of decide in consultation with, I don't know, spouse, significant other, family members, whatever, and everybody kind of comes to this consensus that, okay, we can afford to do so much this month, then you take that as the will of the Lord. One of the practical instructions that I've heard, at least from my Guru, or from devotees who observe my Guru Maharaj's thought process, is that he always discusses the plan with different people. He'll take more than just his own opinion. He won't just go by his own opinion. He'll consult different people. And they describe that planning properly is in the mode of goodness. Acting on a whim, of course, is in the mode of passion. So when you plan and you think things through, that's in the mode of goodness. And that's an indication that you're taking whatever practical steps you can in your decision-making process. And hopefully that's how Krishna's will is revealed to you, because Krishna is not going to appear before us like he did in front of Arjuna.
Thank you so much, Prabhu. That's the reflection of, planning, taking one's time to understand, to look for those signs from Krishna and what one's doing, not doing or making very large or really serious decisions without reflecting on, Shastra, Guru Sada Shastra. And I wanted to add perhaps this aspect of, if there's harm, hurt, or any kind of offense along with one's deeds in serving, then we're already not in the right perspective.
Right. When you say harm or hurt in one's service, what exactly do you mean by that?
Well, in the verse reference tonight, Krishna gave the instruction to kill, to end
Right.
The body functions, right? And
Right.
So for those who may look at that verse and think, in a mimicking way, that's what one should do,
Right.
how would one understand that may not be what Krishna wants, even though Arjuna did it? Arjuna's a pure devotee, so it's different. There's so many instances where we're reading, and people perhaps who are new or older but may have lost their way or whatever are thinking, this is Krishna's service I'm doing, because look, you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So there's aparad, which,
Yeah.
as we know, means offense against Srimati Radharani, and Srimati Radharani loves Krishna, and all living entities have Krishna within.
Right.
But when it's seen or heard that Arjun killed his relatives, let me do that also based on what I think Krishna wants me to do, or offending devotees or Vaishnavas based on something that one wants to do or desires to do, and reflecting it perhaps on Krishna's will and Krishna's desire, because I was able to do it.
Right.
And,
Well,
and not removing false ego in the mix. It can be really tricky for us to understand, is this Krishna's desire? Oh, well, Krishna, if it happens, and that means Krishna wanted it to happen. But is that true in every case? And should we even reflect on it that way?
It's good to reflect on it in the way that you described, in the sense that, is this Krishna's desire? But I think that's where consulting other people than just yourself can be very helpful, because we may be biased in our way of thinking. And if there's somebody you trust that you consult, then you may get a better answer, And then the second point was about, just if somebody were to take this verse out of context, that Krishna is saying to Arjun to kill, so it's fine to kill. I mean, the context you can probably share with them is the example that we hear all the time, that a judge also orders people to be killed or be hanged, whatever, where there's capital punishment involved. But I mean, and a person who just goes out and randomly shoots people, I mean, they're also killing people. But there's a complete difference. I mean, the judge's actions are authorized by law, so he's not punished for ordering somebody's death, unlike the other person who just does it on a whim. So I think these are, of course, extreme examples, but in examples in more day-to-day life, I think consulting somebody who you trust and who has a good spiritual standing is probably a good way to bounce your decision off of a solid sounding board. That's my thought. And I think even Nectar Devotion, kind of in the 6 exchanges between devotees, I mean, like, this is one of them, revealing your mind in confidence, taking instruction, giving gift, accepting gift, this is gift of knowledge, accepting from them. So in that mood, I think we can seek guidance,
And pray for those perhaps who receive instructions from people perhaps who have, they have some benefit in the thing that's going to be done, but not really reflecting on those other aspects of, is this serving Krishna or is it serving me? One can guide someone to do something or give them advice, but if it's serving them and not Krishna, then they're not really even helping the person. And the end result is that Krishna will stamp it approved or not, and that will be reflected in the long run. Yes.
Prabhu, may I interrupt, Prabhu?
Sure, Mataji.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Prabhu, I think we all have this loads and loads of samskaras. Sometimes it's very difficult, even though we are trying to approach Krishna with our devotional service and all. I think because of our lot of samskaras left behind us, I think we may repeatedly choose the activities that is very unpleasant to someone. That's what, I mean, you keep praying to Krishna, guide me, do this, but either unconsciously or our repeated, work ethics or something that is making the decision for us, but not necessarily all of us are sadhus, realized souls. So we are not definitely going to make right choices. Then we are fooling ourselves like Krishna is telling me, and then acting like a God is telling me. No.
Right.
Once in a while, you may get the inspiration or something, but if we are like fooling ourselves that Krishna is guiding, I don't know what to say. I think because we have too much of samskaras left within us, and
Right.
sometimes we wonder, why am I doing the same thing? Even though I'm doing that, I think maybe Krishna is making us do that, or something is happening. So eventually, maybe we will get rid of that karma. Maybe we will go in the right direction somehow, some way. But I don't think every time Krishna is guiding us. We are not that kind of realized souls. We are just taking baby steps towards spirituality. That's what I assume. I gather.
You're absolutely right, Mataji. So this goes back to that verse. You see, Prakriti Kriya Manani Gune Karmani Sarvasha. And then Ahankar Vimodatma Kartamiti Manyate. That Ahankar Vimodatma, we foolish people, because of our ego, Ahankar, Kartaham iti Manyate. We think that we are the ones who are performing the action. What happens is, it is actually, there are three things involved in the action. It's our desire, then the Paramatma sanctions it, or may deny it. But if he sanctions it, then it's the modes of nature that carry out the action. So, but we are responsible. We can't say that the modes carried out the action. We are responsible because the desire was ours. And the super soul just sanctioned it based on the karma. So that's why it's very important to bounce your idea or your thought off of somebody else, because they may not see. Our desire is a function of, like you said, our conditioning, and our desire will be biased because of our conditioning. And so we can't say that, oh, this is Krishna's desire because he let it happen. But if you bounce it off of somebody else and 5 people give their opinion on it, then you'll know where your desire stood. Now, if everybody says, wow, that's perfect, that's wonderful, that's great, then I think you're doing the right thing. But if there are enough objections, then maybe we should rethink this.
Also, somewhere in Bhagavad Gita, it is mentioned that this karma is very intricate. It is not very easy to understand.
Very difficult to understand.
At the same time, it is also said, I heard from many acharyas, that if we try to surrender, if we come to the devotional service, then Krishna, being within us as Paramatma, he takes charge of all our senses activities. He takes charge. That means he won't let us do bad activity with our hands, eyes, ears, nose, tongue, and skin. He takes charge of our senses. If we completely surrender, then whatever we do, we talk, we think, everything is actually done by Krishna. Okay, so that is the total surrender. So there's 2 stages. One is that acting and speaking, that is first stage. Krishna helps if we come to devotional service and exactly listen to him and do what he says. Okay, then complete surrender. That means you're the only one, nobody else. I am just the puppet in your hand.
Right.
You make me dance, make me dance, make me dance. Like how Srila Prabhupada said that in Jaladuta, right? So,
right.
Nachavo, nachavo, nachavo. So that, then Krishna takes charge. Because he is there in everybody's heart, right? Sarvahas chaham vidhi sannivishto.
Yeah.
So,
that complete surrender is the key, and we don't have that complete surrender because of our conditioning. I think that's an important point that Mataji raised. How do we know that this is our desire, or is it, or is it Krishna's desire?
That's what it's again boils down to. The karma is so intricate, and also it is said that without the permission of, it's a little contradictory if we really analyze, but without permission of Krishna, not even a blade of grass moves.
Right.
No, but we are moving based on our own desire now.
Because Krishna is, so the point there is, even though a blade of grass doesn't move without Krishna's desire, when we desire something and we repeatedly desire that, even if it's something wrong, then Krishna will sanction it. He will say, okay,
Exactly.
you're not listening to me. You be responsible for the activity.
Yep. It's like a
So-
child going and asking chocolate from
Yeah,
his-
yeah.
Okay, eat. You will get toothache. You will get a disease. So then you'll realize and come back to me. So,
Correct.
So even though he gives energy for our hands, mouth, anything to do,
Yeah,
it is based on our deep desire. So that is the only free will we have. We have only free will is to desire only, nothing else, not act.
exactly.
That is the only free will we have.
Exactly. And that's why misusing our desire is the biggest problem.
Yeah. Thank you, Prabhu. Nice discussion. So
Thank you all.
nobody has anything, we can end here. You wanted to hear, Prabhu. So anybody else last on the count of 3? 1, 2, 3. Because, Prabhu, I heard your spiritual master is coming to Washington, D.C. this Tuesday.
He already arrived. He landed this morning.
Oh, okay. So are you planning to come?
I
From
wanted
Washington,
to.
D.C., just 2 hours from my place. You can come and stay with me. My family is not there anyways.
Oh, thank you so much, Prabhu. I mean, I just, if I can, I will, but it just depends on health and,
You know, already loads of people there.
So if you plan to come to Washington, please let me know, Prabhu.
Okay, Prabhu. Thank you so much.
Seriously, not joking, but it's just
How far are you from there?
2 hours.
Okay.
So you can drive and stay back here as long as you wish.
Thank you so much, Prabhu.
Well,
That's very kind of you.
Meet all of us, at one place.
Okay.
We can have a nice satsang.
Yeah, absolutely. I really
Yes.
appreciate it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Appreciate it much.
Okay, Prabhu.
All right,
So,
Prabhu.
Sunday is our Snana Yatra at ISKCON Philadelphia. So we have a nice bathing ceremony of the Lordships. And then 2 weeks later, there's a Gita Nagari Rath Yatra. Same deities go there to Gita Nagari. And
Right.
here on the hill, it's a countryside Rath Yatra. On the hill, they take a chariot on the hill. It's very nice. Very nice to watch. Okay.
Okay, Prabhuji.
Thank you.
Okay, Mataji. Hare Krishna.
Thank you.
All glories,
Thank you.
Prabhupada. Jai. Hare.
Mancha
Bye. Hoishu Prabhupada. Much
Inam Pavanebhyo, Vaishnavebhyo, Namo Namaha.
Thank you, Prabhu.
Adi ki jai. Adi Krishna Prabhu ki jai.
Bye.
Vaishnava ki jai. Thank you,
Thank you so
Hare
much, Prabhuji, for wonderful session.
Krishna.